Welcome to this episode of Truth Seekers, where His Grace Bishop Emilianos of Miloa will answer questions sent in by the youth with a member of the youth.
Hello Max, thank you for being here today. Would you like to tell us a couple of things to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. So my name is Maximilian. I am a former atheist that converted to Orthodox Christianity over a few years, and I am 23 years old. I am a student. That's about it.
I've got a question for you. You ready?
Sure.
What do we say to those claiming that Christianity is a way of controlling people? Is it? What's your opinion? What do you think?
For a lot of people everywhere, I think, who grew up culturally Christian, some might grow up with that idea in the back of their mind because it was given to them, and like many religions that people are born into, they never question it. For me, as someone who used to be an atheist or entirely secular, for many years this was my perspective, but as time went on I could see that there were some inconsistencies, which in turn opened up a gateway to delve more into Christianity, and perhaps some of the miracles that seemed completely incomprehensible could be quite easily understood by someone who was willing to set aside their bias, which they happen to be born with or brought up with in the family, entrenched. Only with Christianity, it's a little bit of a struggle because society as a whole is not necessarily attracted towards believing in a higher power, especially one that has a set of laws that we should live by. So it's not a control system, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you for all the information that you gave us about yourself and about the way you see Christianity. And what comes in my mind when I hear this question, if Christianity is controlling or not, is of course the example of Christ, who gave his life. First of all, he was God, he became human, and then he gave up his human life so that everyone else would be saved. And he didn't force anyone to follow him. He just told everyone, look, I love you all, I'm doing this as a sacrifice, I'm doing this to help you. The door is open, it's up to you, you can either enter or you don't have to. I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. And this is the freedom, this is non-controlling way that God tries to show us the way for our salvation. And if we see spiritual fathers in our days that they try to have followers and they try to govern souls and they try to influence people, I think that's not a true Orthodox spirit, because the Orthodox spirit is that a spiritual father is the connection between the spiritual child and God, but everything has to happen with love and freedom. Otherwise there can never be a connection with God, because God is love and freedom. And we can't force anyone to follow Christ. We can't force anyone to follow us. We can't force anyone to do anything. We see other situations that spiritual fathers might be trying to create guilt in their disciples' conscience. And by creating fear, God might punish you or this or that, they try to make them follow Christ. But this is wrong again. This is not what Christ did. This is a human way of thinking how to benefit others, but it's totally wrong. Because, again, if our relationship with our spiritual father and with God is not based in freedom and love, it's not going to work. Eventually it will just fall apart. So we need to be careful when we as human beings, as spiritual fathers as well, but as human beings, when we associate with people, we can't come across as telling them what to do. Orthodoxy teaches with the example, not by telling others what to do. If we give the right example and if we pray for others, then they themselves will realize what the right thing to do is. And that's how they will end up following Christ. Otherwise, we're just dictators. And this is not how Christianity, how Orthodoxy works. What do you think?
No, I agree with a lot of that. It's a voluntary decision that one makes. If we look at Christ in the Gospel also, he asks questions to the audience and then they answer. And their response determines whether or not they continue or leave him. We look at the rich young man, and obviously he's a man that was keeping the commandments of God, but he wasn't prepared to leave everything else. So it can be one of the elements that is quite cult-like. It could be viewed as that by society, to abandon everything that you have, but we must understand that the Gospels are also to be understood spiritually, and it could mean, metaphorically, just put these things aside, whereas let God be the center. So being rooted in God, everything else should become clear to you, what you should do with your life. And the path changes according to the wisdom that God gives you. But the thing is that man is free and he is able to make decisions. And this freedom is the epitome of God's kindness, because nobody would want to be purely a machine.
All right, Max, why do you think God has given us some guidelines?
Christianity is not so much a means of controlling people as they are guidelines for life. It's like if you open a toy box and you have a machine man, or you have a little robot, there is an instruction manual. So when we follow the instructions accordingly, we build the robot right, and it functions properly. But if we do not follow the instruction book, well then it's all in pieces. It's difficult for us to find on our own how to piece it back together. It's better just to go straight to the book. It's just the natural and the ideal way for man to live, to follow the commands of God. And they're not hard. Initially they may be, because we have passions, because we tend towards evil. We tend towards what is easy and what suits ourselves. But it's not sustainable as human beings to continue always in this path. For example, it's like a parent and their children. If we look at it this way, the father has laws of his household so that the children know their boundaries and order is maintained. And if we were to break these rules, well then there would be disorder in the household and a lot of effort would be made to clean up the mess. God just wanted man to love one another as much as possible. This is why he says, love God with all of your heart, all your soul and all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself.
Thank you very much, Max. It's very interesting how a young man sees Christianity and the guidelines that God gives us, that they are not to suppress our freedom, but they are to guide us to be free. And I wish everyone could see this, because if we don't, we basically waste our chance to be free in this life. And this life is very short. Thank you very much for coming today, Max. Thank you.